Okay, confession time. I'm a bit of an optimizer. I take a bunch of supplements. I follow Huberman's advice and get sun in my eyes every morning. I wear blue light blockers in the evening. And I even have a treadmill that goes under my desk so I can get steps in while I work. By all accounts, I'm that guy. And I'll be honest, this stuff actually helps. But there's a dark side to it. And many people have crossed over. It's where optimization itself becomes the goal. You fall into this neurotic holding pattern where you constantly try to find the next hack, habit, supplement, technology that will make you feel even better. Ironically, this is a very suboptimal way to live. And in this video, we're going to explore why that is, how excessive optimization holds you back and makes you ineffective, and what you should do about it, especially if you're an over-optimizer. But first, let me quickly handle the inevitable counter-argument, which is that a lot of this optimization stuff actually works. It's just that I wouldn't call it optimization, I would call it solving problems. The person who lives a sedentary lifestyle, has a poor diet and never goes outside, but then listens to a health influencer and decides to start making changes, this person, they're not over-optimizing. They are repairing themselves and living more in accordance with how humans should live. And I think it's easy to underestimate how significant some of these habits, these fixes, or dare I say, optimizations can be. For example, my energy levels changed significantly when I started going outside to get sunlight in the morning, and I implemented more zone 2 cardio in my workout routine. If someone is deficient in something like magnesium and they supplement to fix it, then it can have a significant positive outcome. So a lot of these things actually work and you should experiment with them. But that's not really what I'm targeting with this video. I'm talking about the growing trend towards obsessive over-optimization that paradoxically causes you to feel worse and become weaker for reasons we'll now explore. Let's talk about optimization without purpose. If your goal is just to feel as good as possible and optimize your performance, but it's just an end in itself, in other words, you don't actually have a higher order goal that you're trying to optimize for, then you end up in a weird situation. Jeremy Giffen explains it well in his podcast on Invest Like the Best.
There's this really weird hyperfixation on routines and performance and things. And I think these are really weird things to think about in the abstract. And I think it's indicative of just a general very low lack of conviction that we all have. So it's this idea of, I actually don't want to know what I want to do with my life or my day. So I'm going to optimize my performance abstractly. Maybe if I wake up at 5 a.m. and I do all this stuff, then I will set the stage to perform at my best for this mystical X that I'm going to figure out.
If you lack conviction and you lack clear goals, then you're naturally going to find something to fill your time, fill your day with. And for many smart, ambitious people, that becomes excessive performance optimization. But why do you need to perform well if you don't have any hard challenges to optimize your performance for? Jeremy continues.
It's useful if you're like going full tilt at a business and you're like, how do I be less tired? Fine, then go learn about sleep optimizing or something. But it's really weird to like optimize your sleep first. And it's tragic because it feels like, especially, I don't know, amongst my peers, there's this big tendency of everyone is sharpening their sword for the battle that's never going to come.
So we can make an important distinction here, which is that we should optimize to fix things and remove bottlenecks over simply preparing for something that may never come, over optimizing for optimization's sake. The other problem with over-optimization is that it drives you away from risk and challenge. Pursuing challenging goals, pursuing work worth doing is often inherently suboptimal, at least from the over-optimizer's perspective, right? So waking up at 3 a.m. because you're worrying about how you're going to make payroll in your rapidly growing business, or your body that's beaten after running the ultra marathon that you've always wanted to do, being sleep deprived for months on end after having your first child. The over-optimizer doesn't deal well with any of these because they don't have a good mental framework for contextualizing them. When you're an over-optimizer, you naturally avoid things that might mess up your perfect conception of what your life should look like with all the routines and habits and, supplements and routines, whatever. And in the process of this avoidance, you become fragile and kind of soulless. You need strain and tension. Optimization is closely linked to comfort, and it drives you away from this strain and tension, which is good for you. As an over-optimizer, you're always trying to find the easier way of doing things instead of facing the challenge head on. Sure, excessively optimizing your sleep might give you slightly more energy and make some things easier. Optimizing your task management system might make you feel good and productive, but you still have to face your fears and do the work at the end of the day. You do not want to become the person who is physically optimized but lacks inner fire and spirit. The other problem with over-optimization is that it's often a distraction from what it is you really need to be doing. I've said this before many times on the channel, but searching for productivity hacks and optimizations is almost always a distraction. You cannot hack your way around the fact that building a business or writing a book or pursuing some other hard goal is inherently difficult. That thing you're looking for that you think will make it easy doesn't exist. And the time you spend looking for it is time that you could be spending climbing the mountain of work in front of you, because that's not going to go away. Over-optimization is spending time on the periphery. It's spending time around what it is we should be doing. It's preparation, it's planning, it's research, it's trying to improve the system, but never actually doing the thing. Over-optimizers usually force themselves into single solution paradigms. They listen to a podcast and they hear about a new supplement, exercise routine, or sleep hack, and they get excited. They start to think, this is what I need. This is going to solve all my problems. Even if they don't say that consciously, it's what they believe unconsciously. Of course, things don't really work this way in life. We often require multiple habits, multiple interventions to really affect change. But the over-optimizer falls into this pattern of single solution thinking. And so that's what causes the neurotic holding pattern. They come across something they think is a single solution, they deep dive on it, they implement it, and then if they're lucky, they can actually placebo themselves into thinking that it solved everything. But that usually only lasts a few days until it normalizes and they're back looking for the next magic pill. The neighbor to single solution thinking is the illusion of control, which the over-optimizer suffers greatly from. While we all have agency and some degree of control over our lives, and we would benefit from recognizing that, the truth is that we have much less control than we think. External events can completely flip life upside down, and if you're the neurotic over-optimizer who needs everything to be in place and to be perfect, then I think it's fair to say that you are less resilient to the trials of life. In his article, This Moment is Your Life, Nat Eliason points out that the over-optimizer mindset is a symptom of the denial of death. The get-rich-quick memescape pours gas on the fire by suggesting that with the proper tweaks to your usage of time, along with the right amount of opportunism, you can get a 10 or 20 or 100x use of your time compared to normies. And so we end up with a deluge of productivity books, videos, and influencers promising to help you optimize your time investing like temporal financial advisors. It's a new symptom of the denial of death. Our lack of control over our own mortality is terrifying, so we'll scrape our fingernails along the ledge for anything we can grab onto as a temporary refuge from facing the abyss. Sometimes it's building pyramids, sometimes it's penis Botox. The manifestations of your terror may vary. So there's a better way. I want to share a few principles with you to take away from this video that can help you if you're an over-optimizer. The first is that maximalism beats optimization. The over-optimizer chases incremental improvements past the point of necessity. They chase elusive perfection and they make themselves ineffective in the process. The maximalist realizes that pursuing the diminishing returns in the world of over-optimization is a recipe for dissatisfaction and low-grade outcomes. They know that often the answer is to do more, to put in more effort, to do more volume, not necessarily in a hyper-optimized way, but more of a throw everything at the wall type of way. And so they relentlessly and faithfully do the work that's in front of them. The over-optimizer expends their energy in the periphery. They spend more time preparing to do the thing than actually doing it. The maximalist knows that the way through is through, that hacks, tools, tips, tactics may make them more efficient, but they are no substitute for courageously pushing through challenge. While the over-optimizer does all they can to avoid pain, the maximalist knows that it's often necessary. And where adversity is, so is progress. As Phil Stutz says, there's a hidden inner strength that you cannot find unless you push yourself through adversity. The over-optimizer wants certainty before they do something challenging and big because they're under the illusion of control. The maximalist knows that there's no real such thing as full certainty, and they put themselves in forward motion anyway, knowing that some action is better than no action, even if it's suboptimal. The over-optimizer suffers from the recursive loop of optimizing for the sake of optimizing. The maximalist optimizes to fix bottlenecks that slow him down in pursuit of his goal. He embraces just-in-time optimization instead of trying to architect the perfect set of habits and hacks from day one. The next principle is to do hard, inefficient things on purpose. If you're an over-optimizer, you need to fight against your tendencies, and there is value in pursuing difficulty for the sake of difficulty. Challenge breeds character, and if you always take the easy, efficient, optimized road, then your courage and your character will atrophy. That means that you do the 3-day hike knowing that you probably won't sleep well in your tent while it's cold and windy, knowing that your body will break itself down a bit. It means doing a work sprint, like working extremely hard for a week or two and pushing through the fatigue, boredom, and discomfort simply to prove that you can. It means training yourself to act in suboptimal conditions. Get a bad sleep one night? So, tell yourself that you're going to have an extremely productive day and then go and do it. You could consider doing something like the Misogi challenge, where you choose something extremely hard that you have a 50% chance of succeeding at, but it makes everything else in that year or in the following year seem easier by comparison. It might be an extended multi-day hike. It might be an ultra marathon. It might be something else entirely. But choose something that resets your idea of what hard is. And then the final principle is to periodically mess with your status quo. You don't always know what's going to work for you and move the needle. Sometimes small fixes can create massive change. But as I've mentioned, I think trying to architect this from the top down is hard, and it's what an over-optimizer does at their peril. A better approach, even if you think you're feeling fine, is to periodically mess with your status quo. So try a new supplement, adjust your diet, add more cardio to your week or weightlifting or something else. Change up your routine. Maybe go for an hour-long walk in the morning every day for a week and just see what it does. See how you feel. If you get into the habit of doing this every now and again, you'll naturally come across things that produce outsized effects, positive effects. For example, about a year ago, I decided to do more Zone 2 cardio after hearing Peter Attia talk about it on his podcast. And if you don't know what Zone 2 cardio is, it's basically like moderate exertion. You can still have a conversation with someone, and there's a bunch of benefits, which I won't get into. Anyway, that habit, which I'll admit is not an easy one, and it takes up a decent amount of time, has significantly increased my energy levels, like in a visceral way. And I only figured that out after trying it, right, for like a month and realizing how good it was. I've also found that I work better under pressure. And so when I tighten deadlines and try and get a lot done in a week, I'm way more productive. Even if my health might suffer a little bit, even if I'm a little bit suboptimal in other areas, that trade-off is often worth it for me. I never would have figured that out if I hadn't changed up the status quo and experimented. So you really want to operate out of the mindset of, let's give this a go and see what happens. This is the opposite of the neurotic holding pattern that over-optimizers find themselves stuck in. You want to be the casual experimenter. That's basically it for this video. I want to leave you with a question, though, which is useful to ask yourself on the regular, especially if you have a tendency to fall into the over-optimization trap. And that is, am I doing this to avoid the uncomfortable thing I know I need to do? Or is it an optimization that will help me do that uncomfortable thing better? Now, one last thing. There's a trap that people fall into that's very similar to this over-optimization trap. It's something I call the learning loop, where you constantly spend time preparing, researching and learning about the thing instead of doing the thing. And I made an entire video on this topic. It's one of my more popular videos, so make sure to check that out if you think you fall into that trap also. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.